Web3 dApp development. Welcome to Lumiwealth's Web3 webinar of the night, and come on in. Hello and welcome everyone. Come on in to our Web3 webinar of the night, and let's discuss the agenda for tonight. You can also see the slides in the chat, as well as a link to the course that we're discussing, Web3 using React. So tonight we're going to begin by getting to know some of you in our chat, and we're also going to cover some main topics in the Web3 space. We'll talk about web development and Web3, as well as decentralized apps. So we'll get a taste of the topics in our Web3 course. Currently, we're in the fall semester of our Web3 course, but we are running a winter semester. So we encourage you to join us live for our next session in the wintertime. And tonight we won't be doing any coding, but we'll be doing more like a bird's eye view of these topics. And then in the course, we do a lot of project building. Every single week, we get hands-on learning about web development and decentralized app development. So let's begin by getting to know some of you in our chat. So please feel free to drop in the chat if you'd like. Let us know, what is your job? Do you know how to code? And how much experience do you have in either web development or in blockchain development or even investing? This will give me a better idea of how to tailor the webinar tonight. If you have no experience, I'll make sure to adapt the webinar to explain everything at a basic level. But if you have some experience in web development or blockchain, then I will keep that in mind as well. Most of my students are complete beginners, so it's totally normal if you don't have any coding experience. That's usually what I do expect. Usually I expect very minimal experience. And the goal of tonight is to get you understanding some of these terms and this Web3 space. And the goal of the course is throughout 10 weeks, we teach you how to go from no experience to learning how to code and having a portfolio of dApps. And also, if you have any task given to you at a job interview or at an actual job, you'll be able to handle the task and complete whatever is assigned to you in the Web3 dApp space. So you'll learn how to actually get hands-on with dApps to have a portfolio. All right, so we have Ash, some JavaScript and HTML experience. All right, so that will definitely help you for sure if you have some of that experience on the web development side, because webinar and the course is focused on decentralized apps that are websites. Because of course you could have decentralized apps that are any type of software. You could have a video game, you could have a mobile app, you could even just have a desktop app, and that could be a dApp. But in our course, we focus on websites as the dApps because they are currently the most common form of dApp, is building a website that is transformed into a dApp through connection to the blockchain. All right, I will also introduce myself. Before I forget, my name is Alexandra. I'm your host for tonight, and I was also the host yesterday for any of you that were here with me yesterday at Blockchain Programming. And I am a software developer and an instructor here at Lumiwealth of blockchain programming and Web3. So I've taught thousands of students around the world online how to build dApps and how to get started in the Web3 space, considering it's a relatively new field, and so there's few courses out there, especially at university. And so that's me. These courses were actually designed together, blockchain programming and Web3. They were designed with each other in mind. Typically, students will start at blockchain programming because it is a bit easier, and then they will do Web3. So they will start learning the smart contracts, and then they will learn how to combine the smart contracts with the web or any other software, how to combine a blockchain software with a non-blockchain software. That's what we're talking about tonight. But if you have experience in web development, then You can do Web3 without doing blockchain programming, and you can even do both classes at once. I also have students that do both of them at once that manage just fine. If you do have experience in at least coding, that will definitely help you with Web3, because we do use JavaScript quite heavily in the course. More on that later though. So this course is brought to you by Lumiwealth, where we have a whole array of online courses. So if I go to our website here, you can see we have primarily financial courses like trading and algorithmic trading, machine learning for finance. But as the financial industry is getting affected more and more by the blockchain, we also have been introducing these blockchain courses to blockchain programming and Web3. So those of you just coming in, please feel free to say hello in the chat. Thank you for joining, and let us know in the chat if you would like. What is your job? Do you know how to code? And do you have experience in web development or the blockchain? That way I can get to know some of you that are coming in just now and better tailor the webinar for everyone. And we will be posting this webinar on YouTube, so I encourage you to search for us on YouTube and subscribe and get notified, because we post all the webinars, and also we post interviews and reviews. You can hear students talk about this course, hear what they had to say about it, and more examples. So it's just youtube.com and then search up Lumiwealth. We also have a Discord channel, although we are focusing on Circle more so than Discord. So if you are on Circle, that is our primary community space. But if you want to follow us or join us on Discord, you can as well. It's the secondary community space. And if you have any questions throughout the night or any comments, please feel free to let us know in the chat. And we'll also have time at the end for questions too. So you can save your questions to the end if you'd like. All right, so let's begin with our first topic of the night, web development. Before we jump into web development, we also have a few messages. Ash is joining us, a developer creating desktop apps using Visual Studio and C#, but no blockchain experience. All right, so if you have the software experience, that will definitely help you get started with dApps, because you can easily transfer your knowledge from one type of software to another type of software, like from desktop apps to smart contracts or decentralized apps. We also have Kim, a project manager in design and construction, no blockchain experience or coding, but interested in Web3 and tech. All right, glad to have you. Yes, most students that I get are complete beginners, so we do teach everything from scratch. We teach the core fundamentals of everything that you need to know. And each week of the course, we increase your knowledge building upon the previous week. So we start from scratch, but we quickly build more and more advanced projects. And this course is actually supersized. It is 10 weeks long. Blockchain programming is 8 weeks, but this course actually, because it is a little more advanced, it is actually 10 weeks. We also have Marie currently studying front-end development, HTML, CSS, Java, maybe JavaScript, and Bootstrap. All right, great. So that will definitely help as well with Web3. So we'll begin with just introducing web development for those of us that don't have experience. And any of you that have experience in web development, you can feel free to add your own comments in the chat as I introduce web development. So why am I talking about web development first? Well, because decentralized apps and Web3, to be able to build those projects, Web3 projects, you have to first build a regular web project, and then you can go into Web3. But the first few weeks of our course are dedicated to web development itself, without even introducing the decentralized part into it just yet. We also have Marie asking, what course is this? So we are going to be discussing tonight an introduction to the Web3 course, Web3 using React. So I will drop a link to that in the chat as well as the slides. So first, in about the first week or two, we will be covering web development in general. So we will be covering the 3 fundamental tools first that every web developer learns. Marie was already mentioning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So these are the 3 essential tools that we need if we want to build dApps. Because to build a dApp, you need some regular piece of software first, like a website, because a piece of software is just anything made with code. So we need a regular app, and then we just add a decentralized layer on top. So first, we're going to just build the base structure, just a regular app, centralized layers. But to build the core app, we just build a regular website. Now, you don't have to build a website. You could build a desktop app, like we had Ash mentioning. You could build a video game. You could build a mobile app. It doesn't have to be strictly a website. However, right now, the most popular form of a dApp is a website. And it's also one of the easier ones to build too. So that's why we're starting off building websites. And throughout the course, our decentralized apps, they will be websites. And if you want to build some other software, then you can transfer your programming skills that you will pick up. So the first tool that we will learn is HTML, and this is used to set up a website. So you set up the pages, the elements that you want on your pages. So any kind of dApp that you want to create, you need to put the core elements, like how will the users interact? Are there buttons? Are there input fields? Is there text? Are there images? You need to put the base structure of your app first. So that's why we cover HTML. And every web developer or web designer, they all begin by learning HTML because every web page online is actually an HTML page. You know, there might be a lot more working as well, but at the very core, the way that a web page is served or hosted on the internet is through an HTML file. So this is like a text file or a PNG, but instead of all those, it's the type HTML. So it's a file type. And this is how websites are displayed on the internet. So that's why we have to learn HTML. And then we can add to our knowledge as we keep going through each week or each individual day of the course. So after HTML, we will also briefly cover CSS. So this is how to add style to your page. And we won't be focusing too heavily on CSS, but we will just cover it so that you at least know it, because it is the second tool that every web developer will learn. And with CSS, you can change the position of your elements. You can add colors, fonts, change sizes of different elements. You can add some animations to your site. So that's why we learn CSS, is to understand basic styling, how a website is styled. And then after we cover those two, we get into the meat of things with JavaScript. So the third tool that we will learn is a programming language called JavaScript. And JavaScript powers the web. It allows you to have websites that have functionality. About 98% of websites on the web, they use JavaScript. So the HTML, the CSS, that is to set up the look, like the user interface of how the web page looks. But you won't be able to do anything with the web page. You could just look at it. You could display some data. Maybe you have a landing page and you want to just promote something like a poster that you can make with HTML and CSS and put it as a website. But if you want user interaction, or you want dynamic content on the web page or in the app, if you want users to sign up, to make transfers, to make purchases, any kind of functionality running a task through the web page, you have to write that into the page with JavaScript. So we will learn JavaScript from scratch in our Web3 course. So we start with the basics like variables, functions, loops, and each week we add more and more to our toolkit so we can build more and more complex dApps. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we have to master these to understand how to build a website. And once we can build a regular website, we can pretty quickly start adding a decentralized layer on top. So what this means is you take your website and you connect it to the blockchain in some format. And we'll talk about that coming up next on our next slide, the different ways that we can do so. So first you just have your regular piece of software, your application, and then you connect it to some decentralization. Now, currently the most common form of decentralized technology is the blockchain. And the most popular blockchain for dApps is Ethereum. So usually when people are talking about dApps, they're talking about websites that connect to Ethereum. That's the most popular creation, most popular method of creating dApps. However, the definition can go beyond that. It doesn't have to be a website, it doesn't have to be Ethereum. So those are the most popular dApps, but you can expand what a dApp is. You could have another type of software, another blockchain, another cryptocurrency being used. So there's a large umbrella of dApps. So very quickly in our course, we will be able to create our first dApp together. We'll start off with a simple dApp, and then each week we will build more and more complex projects. To help us build complex projects, we will also learn React at around the midway part of the course. We will learn a tool called React.js. This is another large tool for web development in general. And this allows you to organize complex websites, like if you have a lot of pages or large pages, or even if you just want to make a website that's organized, then you use the tool React. This is very commonly the fourth tool that every web developer will learn. And so we will learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then add the decentralized layer with tools like Truffle, Ganache, and MetaMask, which we'll talk about later. And then around the halfway part, we'll introduce React. And these days, if you want to be a web developer in general, you have to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. These are quite fundamental and not optional. You have to know these if you want to get hired as a web developer. Same idea for dApp developers, because dApp developers, they're just web developers with an extra layer in the projects, the extra blockchain layer. So any web developer can become a dApp developer by learning that decentralized aspect to websites. Now, in this course, we teach you everything. We teach you how to be a web developer and how to be the dApp developer. So how to just start as a web developer and then add that blockchain layer. So we teach you everything from complete scratch, even if you have no experience. So now let's discuss dApps, the kinds of dApps that we will build. So we've talked about the tools that we will learn, and we will learn more as well, but those are the four main tools that we're using. We're using JavaScript as our programming language and React in the later half of the course, which React is just a tool that also uses JavaScript. Throughout our 10 weeks, we will be building websites and decentralized apps. Depending on how much knowledge we have that week, we'll be able to build either a regular website or a dApp. So what is a dApp? How can we define a dApp? A bird's eye description would be a piece of software that connects to decentralized technology. So before the first blockchain was created in 2008, and especially Ethereum, which really opened up the possibility to create dApps in 2015, Before that, we didn't have any blockchain technology. So all software was just traditional software or just regular software. When we talk about dApps, we mean taking that software and adding to it this connection to this new technology, the blockchain. Now, why do we want to create dApps in the first place? You might be thinking, why not just make a regular website? Why do people care about making dApps? Well, when we create a dApp, we are taking advantage of the benefits of the blockchain. So that's the whole point, is so that your website is not using traditional technology to keep it running, but instead it's using the advantages and benefits of decentralized technology. So one just broad way is enabling cryptocurrency payments. If you want to enable those, you have to connect to a blockchain. So that would be a very general way, or a general reason of why to make a dApp. If you have an online store, you have a website, you're selling products. If you want to enable people to pay in cryptocurrency, you have to make that connection to a blockchain, usually Ethereum. And so that's one reason to create dApps, to make those kinds of payments. If you don't just want payments in only credit cards and PayPal, if you want to also enable cryptocurrency payments with Bitcoin, Ether, ADA, whatever currency you want. And in our 10 weeks, we focus on building dApps for Ethereum, because Ethereum is the most popular blockchain for building decentralized apps currently. Who knows, in the future, maybe some other blockchain will take over Ethereum in popularity. But right now, Ethereum is the most popular for building dApps. It was actually Ethereum that was created back in 2015 that enabled dApps to exist. So before Ethereum, we actually didn't have the possibility of building dApps. But with Ethereum came the invention of smart contracts, and with that, we can create complex dApps. So that's another reason to transform a website into a dApp, is to take advantage of the smart contracts of blockchains like Ethereum and many others. Because these smart contracts, they live on the blockchain and they run autonomously. And you can connect your website to do all the website tasks over Ethereum. So instead of using a server and a database, you can do all the same steps over a blockchain. Or you can do both side by side. So what this means is, if you want to sign up users or make purchases, or you want to store products or create a bank that allows users to take out loans, or any kind of website functionality, like even making social media posts or keeping track of the items in your inventory, anything that you would do on a website, you can do it all over the blockchain. So this is a way of replacing or just having a second layer to your website. You might be thinking, what's the point of replacing all my functionality? Why not just keep it how it was? My website is perfectly fine. Well, again, it's because of the benefits of Ethereum and similar blockchains. Because number one, if you connect your website functionality to a smart contract, which you can build yourself, or you can use one that's already on Ethereum, but usually a company will build their own contracts. Same thing with your projects. If you have your website connected to a contract, it means that all of the processes are now being run over Ethereum. They're being tracked on Ethereum. They're being validated by Ethereum. You also get the benefits of cryptocurrency, where they're much harder to hack and to counterfeit compared to a digital dollar that's not a cryptocurrency, like just paying with a credit card. So that security and that tracking and the autonomous operation that doesn't require your supervision at all. Those are some of the benefits of creating dApps. As well, when you create a dApp, you increase your transparency and your user trust because you put all of your website functionality into a contract. And the contract is just a piece of code that lives on Ethereum. And anyone can come and they can see how is the website actually running. So they can see what you're doing with their data. You can see as well, what will the transaction give them? Are you actually going to give them the product that the website promises to give them? So users can go and they can check your contract and see if it's trustworthy and what is happening behind the scenes of your website. And this helps establish the trust between the user and the organization that's running that website. And these contracts, they can be trusted because they live on Ethereum and they cannot be changed. So you cannot change the code in the contract. The contract can, run tasks. It can add users. It can make purchases. It can do a transfer. It can send products. It can send cryptocurrency. But the code of the contract cannot be changed. So this helps establish trust because your users, they know that what is in the contract is what will happen. So those are some of the reasons that we see this use of decentralized apps. And so when we're talking about dApps, we're talking about any application that runs on decentralized computing. The most common form right now is the blockchain. Maybe in the future there will be other types of decentralized computing, but right now the most popular one is talking about blockchains. Let's see, we also have a question from Ash. Is it possible to build a community website for tennis players, for example, using dApps? Yes, that's right. You can. Any website can be converted into a dApp. So for a community website for tennis players, I've built similar projects in the past with, forum dApps and social media dApps, where users will likely come to your community site and they'll want to sign up. So the signing up, they do it through your website, but behind the scenes, what's really signing them up is not a server or not the website, but a contract. Same thing if they want to make a post, maybe they want to say who's playing tennis tonight. When they make the post and it publishes on the site, it's not just being owned by the company who stores that post and the company puts the post on the site. Instead, the post is actually sent to the blockchain. The blockchain then updates the site and shows all the posts. So the company is not actually controlling anymore what is being typed in. Instead, it's being sent to a contract. Now, the company or you, if you're building this, you could store it yourself as well. You could have double layers where you have your own database, your own server, and you have the blockchain as well. So then you would have a partially decentralized app because you have some centralization, but you have some decentralization. So it depends on your project. But yes, I could easily see a community website for tennis players being a dApp. So the website would be a dApp, and dApps, they use smart contracts. So typically a company would build the smart contracts and they would build the dApp for the smart contracts. So that's why we have these two courses here where you learn the smart contracts in blockchain programming and you learn the dApps in Web3, because that's typically how it works. When you create a project, you will have both sides, where you have the contracts and you have the dApp side. But your dApp doesn't have to use a contract. It could just be very simple and just accept cryptocurrency payments. That could be the whole reason, the whole decentralized layer. You don't have to have connection to a smart contract. But that is typically what we see is the connection to smart contracts. Okay, Ash is saying, great, thanks for explaining how blockchain and contracts make a better site. Yes, exactly. That's the whole point of dApps, is to improve the web, improve how websites are created we're actually talking more about that later on. So yes, we have decentralized apps communicating with smart contracts. And in this course, we are going to be using pre-made contracts because in blockchain programming, we build all the contracts. In this course, we build the front end. So a dApp is like the window to the blockchain or a user interface. Just like how a regular website is a user interface for your company's server or database, same idea with a dApp. The whole reason to build a dApp is to allow users to interact with Ethereum somehow. Because you could go directly to Ethereum, but this requires some programming knowledge, which most people don't have. So if you want to maximize your audience, you build something much simpler like a website, because anyone really can go to a website. And so the website is just the window for how the user can access the contract, because the contract is doing all the work. The website is just there to make it easier for someone to access the contract. The contract doesn't have to do all the work. It could just do partial amounts. It could just do signing in and that's it. You could just have signing in be decentralized and have everything else be the traditional technology. Depends on your project. So here I have listed out some examples of dApps. As I mentioned, any website can be converted to a dApp, because when you write a contract, you can write a contract as complex or as simple as you want. If I have an entire marketplace for NFTs or for minting NFTs, so creating new ones, I can write that all in a contract. Same thing with a social media website. I can write all the functionality for that in a contract. Maybe actually it would be multiple contracts, because if you have a giant social media company, then it's going to have a lot of different features. So you could have a collection of contracts, and the collection of contracts, they work together. Same thing with a bank. You could create a bank contract and accept accounts, accept deposits, withdrawals, transfers, loans. You can write all of that in a contract instead of just a regular piece of code. So typically, a company like a bank or a social media site, they have their own code base where they wrote all that functionality. Like the bank has its code for all the bank functionality. The social media site has its code to enable new users, liking posts, comments, follows, all that. They have it written in code. But you can do all the same stuff in a contract instead. So contracts are very powerful. And you don't have to completely replace everything. You don't have to replace your whole company with smart contracts. You can just have it as an additional layer or partial layer if you want. So let's see here. We have some more examples. I already mentioned a bunch of them. You could have even just a simple to-do list. This could be a dApp. Maybe some of you that have some web development experience, maybe you've built a to-do list before as a website where you can add more items and you can cross them off when they're done. Simple little beginner project for a website. You can build the same project as a dApp. So where users go to a website and they can add to-do list items and they can cross them off when they're done. But you can store all of the functionality on a contract. So when a user adds a new item to their list, that's being stored on the contract. The contract is going to store the users, the items, any changes to the items. If you finish an item, if you delete an item, if you finish an item 50% of the way, the blockchain will keep track of all of that. So there's very good permanence in terms of data storage. That's why we see a lot of historical data or archiving taking advantage of the blockchain, because it's permanent. It's very hard to lose data, nearly impossible really, to lose data on a blockchain. Whereas if you have your own site with your own database, your own server, if your database warehouse goes up in flames, well, then you've lost all your data. If you're using maybe the cloud, like you're storing your data on Dropbox, well, if you forget your password or if there's some kind of glitch with Dropbox, then your data is gone. So this could happen with a blockchain too. The blockchain could erupt as well, but it's, these things don't usually erupt. Usually it's like leaks in the software. So there's a lot more data permanence, another benefit of dApps. A very simple dApp is passwordless sign-in. So if you have a regular app, usually you would sign in with your email, maybe your phone number these days, maybe a password, maybe just a code. So you have that process of signing in. You can replace features like that with the blockchain. For example, you could have really fast sign-in thanks to cryptocurrency wallets. So if a user signs in through their wallet, it's instant sign-in because they will have the wallet in the browser or on their phone if it's a mobile app. And so it makes signing in a lot faster. So that's just one simple way of introducing decentralized technology into a website. It's just signing them in without any password or even any username, because your dApp can just detect the user through their browser, of course, if they give you permission for that detection. See what else we have. Data storage. So any type of data that you're storing, like products, shipments, logistics, all that can be stored in a contract, tracking your business processes. Oftentimes we see this, again, to prevent missing data. If you have a very complex business process or a shipment that travels all around the world in different steps, or maybe a product starts creating in one country, then it gets sent to another and another until it's done. It's very easy to have a leak or a gap in that process and not even know where it is. We might be thinking, why do I keep losing products? Why do my shipments keep not arriving? Well, if that same data or process is stored on the blockchain, there's a lot fewer instances of missing data or not knowing what happened. Because a blockchain is so permanent, it will track everything that ever happens. So any kind of interaction. If I sign into my account, the blockchain tracks my sign-in. If I make a purchase, the blockchain tracks my purchase. Whatever the contract wants to track, you write it in the contract. If you want to track users that move around in the video game, you can track every single step they make. That would be a little tedious, but you could do it. You would just put it in the contract. And then on the blockchain, you would have this transaction log where you see every time the user took one step forward. You see that recorded. You see exactly when it happened, who did it. So you can have very detailed and permanent tracking of events. And all of these are public, so anyone can go and they can see what are you tracking, what is being stored in the contract. We already talked about another example, online stores. If you have an online store, like maybe Lumiwealth, we do sell courses, we can do all the same selling procedures over a contract. And this would make the store more autonomous because once you publish a contract, you no longer control it. You are the owner of it. Yes, it gets tracked or it gets logged who actually owns the contract, but this just means who actually put it on Ethereum. It doesn't mean that you can change the contract after the fact. So contracts are very autonomous, which means independent. They run immediately when they're used, and they run without any human intervention. So if I have an online store and the user comes and they want to make a payment, they want to buy something, if it's a dApp, they're not actually buying from me anymore. I mean, kind of are, because I'm going to get the money because the contract will send me the money. But the user is not actually interacting with me anymore. They're not interacting with my database, my server. They're just using my website to get to the contract. And the contract will take their purchase, it will send them the product, and the contract will send me the money. And so we're both relying on the contract to do the job. We're not interacting with each other at all. So there's a higher level of independence and separation if you have a dApp compared to a regular site. Some more complex examples are a cryptocurrency exchange. That would be another dApp. A trading bot, that would be another dApp. Creating banks, yield farming, or arbitrage. Ash is asking any examples of popular dApps. Yes, definitely there are different cryptocurrency exchanges, and yield farming is getting very popular. OpenSea is an extremely popular dApp. OpenSea.io. Just drop a link in the chat. OpenSea is, you might probably know, likely know, the most popular NFT marketplace for creating, buying, selling, transferring NFTs. And so this would be an example of a dApp. Why? Well, because it's a website that is connecting to Ethereum. So all of this data, like these images, this price, if I click on one of these collections, I can click on one of the NFTs. All this data from the NFTs, like the image, the owner, the name, the views, oh, the views could be the site, but this, when it ends, the price history, all this data is not coming from OpenSea. OpenSea is just a website. The data is actually coming from Ethereum. So OpenSea is not storing these NFTs. It's not storing this data in their database. It's actually just getting all the data from Ethereum. So OpenSea is a very popular dApp, an app that connects to Ethereum. So in this case, OpenSea likely didn't create any contracts themselves. They just created an app, a website, that gets data from Ethereum. So they get all the NFTs that are ever created, and they update it over time. Every day there are more NFTs constantly. So in this case, you don't even have to create your own contract. You could just create the website, and you could just connect to contracts that already exist. So OpenSea, they didn't create any of these NFTs. Instead, they're just getting from the blockchain, the NFTs, the NFT data. So your dApp could be that as well. It could just connect to existing contracts. Usually, if you have some organization, though, they will want to have the contracts and the site as well. Like if you have an online store, then you want to have a contract for your store, and you want to have a website for your store. You don't want to use someone else's store, because how else are you going to have your products? Unless it's a contract specifically for creating stores, and anyone can create a store. So there are many different use cases, many different projects that you can create out there in the dApp space. And it's quite an exciting space to be in because it's a new field. That's why we created this course in the first place, because many companies, from Google to local small companies, are hiring Web3 developers. So this is a great time, especially because there's a lot of funding in the space as well, even from individual blockchains. So as new blockchains start out, they give out funding for projects and for companies to develop for their blockchain. For example, Solana, Cardano, Near, they all have grants that they give out for projects. So it's a great space to be in. There's a lot of opportunity for innovation. So those are some examples of dApps. And in our course, we will build several dApps together. So you'll have a nice portfolio at the end. And by the end of the course, the goal is that you can build any dApp that you get asked to create. So if you get asked to create a yield farming dApp, you'll be able to do so. If you get asked to make a clone of OpenSea, you'll be able to do so, right? There are many companies across different industries creating dApps, so you have to be prepared to, get hired at any different possible industry. Any industry that uses software, they can take advantage of contracts and dApps, because it's all still in the software space. We're still talking about code and the tech industry. Very commonly, we see financial companies, video game companies, and web development companies as the most common ones incorporating right now dApps. And of course, large companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, all of those are also hiring developers. They're hiring across all types of developers, though. And there are many new companies just starting out that are focused on blockchain themselves. So those are also good places to apply if you are interested in working in the dApp space. Some companies, they are existing for a long time. They have traditional software and they're incorporating blockchain. But some companies are just newly starting out and they're very focused on blockchain from the very beginning. Now, very closely interlinked with dApps is the concept of Web3. So let's discuss this concept of Web3 next, because when we talk about dApps, we're talking about Web3. The two are pretty much talking about the same thing these days. We'll see how it is in the future. So what is Web3? Web3 is a term that's used to describe the next phase of the web, the next phase of the internet, how websites are created. So back in about the 80s, when the web was first starting out, we had the phase Web 1.0. This was when there were few developers, few websites, few users, few computers really compared to today. And this was the first phase of the web when it was first starting out and getting into homes. Then by the year 2000, we entered the phase Web 2.0. This is the phase that we're in right now, where we have increased user interaction and increased data generation, mostly due to social media companies that, they have a lot of users, they all are generating a lot of data. So we're currently in this phase. We have more programmers, we have more websites, more users of the web as well. So that's the current phase of the web, but there are issues with this current phase of the web. The web is nowhere near perfect. We have a lot of identity theft, hacks, counterfeit transactions, fraudulent transactions. We have large monopolies of centralized companies, which means companies with a central entity like a CEO and a central team that owns and profits from the company. So we have a lot of large companies that dominate industries. So this makes it very hard to have a small company that can start up in a field or any kind of decentralized system currently. And what else do we have today? Well, as I mentioned, we have poor security with a lot of hacks that happen on the daily, especially if you have a website that handles a lot of transactions and money. You're going to be a high target point for these hacks. And so that's our current phase, Web 2.0. The goal of Web 3 is to improve on Web 2 and address these issues. And currently, the most popular way that Web 3 is coming about is through decentralization. So allowing interaction with blockchain, smart contracts, allowing for decentralized autonomous organizations, which means companies that are run by user votes and user proposals instead of run by a private team. And the goal is to improve security thanks to the blockchain validating transactions, improve transparency and data openness. Like you can see what's being done with your data, who's profiting off of it, what is being tracked, where is it going, because the blockchain stores everything that is done and all the data that's generated. And so those are some of the reasons that Web3 is coming about and why we see this term Web3 floating around. Because with smart contracts and the blockchain, we can improve the web in general. And this is done directly through dApps right now. By building a dApp, you're adding your security features, transparency, decentralization, the autonomous contracts. So just by building dApps, you're participating in Web3, this next phase. Now, we don't have full adoption of Web3 right now. We're still in Web 2, but we do see every day more and more transitions to Web 3. These transitions are done in how websites are made, as well as the tools for making websites. More and more tools are being created every day that allow for more decentralization. And therefore, as more websites start using the technology, we push to the next phase, Web 3. And we'll likely see more and more technology, could even be completely brand new technology to help with this next phase and, improve the state of the web. Currently, it's a relatively new frontier. Really, this first started with Ethereum back in 2015. So it does take time for these changes to be made because you're trying to change the whole web. But we do see more and more adoption as we have more dApp developers and more companies that are actually interested in Web3. Now, why would a company be interested in Web3? Well, primarily to save them time and money, and as well to just get into the popularity and the competitiveness of Web3, and to enable cryptocurrency payments as the very basic level. So that's what we're talking about when we say Web3. Right now we're talking about building dApps. In the future, we'll probably be talking about more things as well. But right now, the primary way of interacting with Web3, creating Web3, is through dApps. Because when you build a dApp, you're building a website in a different way that is moving away from Web 2 and moving toward Web 3. So if you already are a web developer, it's very important to learn because you got to keep your skills sharp and you have to keep adapting as technology inevitably changes constantly. So if you're a web developer, you have to learn these new techniques. Otherwise, your method of creating websites will be left in the past. And you may have heard of Web3.js. This is a library or a collection of code used to help you connect to the blockchain. So in our course, we will be learning about this library, Web3.js. This just helps you take a website and connect it to the blockchain. And throughout our 10 weeks, we will be using JavaScript for all of our projects. So if you do have some experience with JavaScript, that will definitely give you a leg up to build these dApps. But if you don't have any experience, don't worry, we will make sure to teach you the fundamentals. You'll just have more homework to do so that you understand JavaScript compared to someone who already knows JavaScript. Here is a sample project. So these are just some steps to building a project. Now, I don't expect you to understand any of this now, but this is just one workflow that you would go through to build a dApp. And we're going to build many dApps together in our course. This is just one example of the workflow that you can use. You set up a new project, you build your blockchain side, like the contracts, then you build the web side, your website, and then you have to bridge the two together. So essentially, that is how you create a dApp. You have these two sides that are bridged. However, you can have a lot more variations and a lot more complexity. You could have a database, a web server as well on top of that. And you could ignore contracts completely and just use the wallet instead if you just want cryptocurrency payments or signing in. So it really depends on the project. You'll see in the course that there are many different types of dApps that you can create, all the way from a simple to-do list to something like OpenSea. dApps can be very simple or very complex. Of course, I recommend you start off simple, otherwise you will get overwhelmed very quickly. So we will start off simple, and each week we will build upon our knowledge and increase the complexity. All right, now let's talk about the 10 weeks of the course and exactly what you will learn. So I will drop a link to the course in the chat so you can all visit it at lumiwealth.com. We also have an early bird sale running right now for the winter semester. So because, we still have about a month and a half, it's considered the early bird stage. So right now we are selling at a 20% discount if you use the special coupon code. So I encourage you to use that coupon code. We still have a few days left that you can use it in this early bird stage. So here is the page for the course. And you can scroll down, you can read more about these topics. You can see all the curriculum. So all the 10 weeks, which we'll go through. And I just want to show you first here. Registration closes November 23rd, and the course starts on the last day of November. So blockchain programming starts December 1st. Web3 starts at the same time. And the course length is 10 weeks, except a holiday break around New Year. There will be a break. But otherwise, we meet every Wednesday. So Web3 meets every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern. So the same time as today was this webinar, but on Wednesdays. And we meet for 2 hours every week live over Zoom. And again, you can use this coupon code right now to save 20%. And there are 3 different options for how you can take the course. There is the self-directed option, the live classes, and the tutoring option. So the self-directed option, this is where you go through the course on your own. You get access to all the videos, and we've run several semesters already, so you get access to all of those semesters. Any future semesters, you can also watch those. So you have lifetime access to any videos that we create, and also the code for the projects. You also get instructor support and weekly discussion hour, which is a separate time, separate from the course. There's also a live classes option where you get everything from the other plan, but you also get the 10 weeks of live classes. So if you want to meet live, if you need that extra motivation, then I encourage you to join for our live classes where you can ask questions, you can share your screen, debug live if you have any projects you want to test out live, and live classes are a great option. We go through the entire semester together, and we have a lot of opportunities for interaction. We also have 6 hours of live Q&A, help with projects, and resume and interview prep. And then the other final plan is the tutoring plan. So you get everything that we already discussed, but you also get help with building a custom project, including software development if needed, and 10 hours of one-on-one video or phone sessions or software development time. So if you want more of that individual tutoring, or you have a specific project in mind, then choose the third option here. And we do have 3 and 5 month payment plans available, so you don't have to pay all at once. So you can select which course you'd like, and this will take you to your cart. If you have 2 courses, you'll get a 10% discount on top of that as well. And then you can proceed to check out your cart. Remember, you can apply any coupons as well. Here you can choose if you want to pay with a payment plan, so you don't have to pay all at once. You can pay on a payment plan, and then you can place the order, and you'll immediately have access to the videos and the code that already exists, because we have run blockchain programming and Web3 several semesters already. So there's a library that you can already watch, a lot of hours available. And then we're going to do it all again in the winter time. So yes, very excited for the winter semester. Ash is asking which course would be better to take first, blockchain or dApps? And also I'm looking to do it next year. Would you be offering courses next year? So first question, I recommend the blockchain programming course first. It is easier because it's 8 weeks, and so a bit easier of topics. Building the smart contracts, that would be that side. And then after that, I'd recommend Web3. It's a bit longer, 10 weeks, and the projects are a bit more advanced. But I do have students that are doing both courses at the same time, managing just fine. And if you do have experience, then you can do either one. If you're a complete beginner, then start with blockchain programming. But if you have experience in coding, then you can do either one just fine. And would you be offering courses next year? I believe we will be offering courses in the spring. So this is the winter. It'll start in December or November 30th, and it will last a couple months, maybe 3 months max. And in the spring, I do believe, yes, we will have courses in the spring too. Don't have a guarantee, but almost certainly yes. But we don't have it on the page just yet, so can't guarantee it. Great questions. Please ask any more that you have. I'm also going to go through the curriculums. So 10 weeks, quite a large course, the largest one that we have. First week, we begin with just general web development, building a simple site. In week 2, we start building our first dApp. So we learn a lot of different tools and languages, libraries in the course. There's a lot that you'll pick up. Week 3, we continue building our dApp. Week 4, we finish the dApp. So by week 4, you have your first complete dApp created together. You go all the way from having a blank folder to having your dApp. So this is a very hands-on project-based course, and we teach you all the projects from scratch. So there's no starter point. You always start it from scratch. That way you understand the whole process. You're not just filling in some code, you're actually just building the whole thing from scratch, and you can easily build it again on your own completely from scratch with any variations or extensions that you want. And of course, all the projects you also get in the completed states and in partially completed states, so you can follow along for every week and every step of the project. So you get all the code as well for every single project. Around halfway, we learn React, because with React, we can build more advanced dApps. And then in the final parts, we build some complex dApps with React, like NFT minting and to-do lists, and take a look at more examples as well. So by the end of the course, the goal is that you can build any dApp that you want to build or any dApp that you get hired to build. Because you'll have the tools of how to build dApps, but you'll also have the tools of how to research and how to plan out a project, whatever project you may get. Because I only have 10 weeks to teach you. I can't teach you all of web development and every single website you could possibly make, because there's so many websites out there. There's banks, social media, forums, community websites. There's Google Slides, Lumiwealth.com. There's Zoom. There's so many websites out there. So as a web developer, you don't have to know how to make every website, but you have to know how to make a website and then how to research the appropriate tools you need to build any website. So what you're learning is transferable knowledge that you can transfer to any company, any website, or any dApp specifically. But by the end of the course, you will have a portfolio of projects, and also you'll know how to add to that portfolio on your own. So we don't just leave you, we make sure that you're well equipped to continually learn even beyond the 10 weeks. Last week, we talked about how to use other blockchains too, because there are many blockchains out there, but if you know how to work with one, then you can easily pick up another blockchain. Many times a company will have their own blockchain too. As long as you know how to build projects for one blockchain, you can transfer your skills. Same thing with programming languages, same thing with decentralized apps. If you know how to build one, or at least several variations as well, then you can easily transfer the skills to a similar project. You might get a job interview that asks you to build a dApp you've never heard of before, but if you have an outline of what you have to create, then you can do the appropriate research to create it. So those are the 10 weeks. I hope to see all of you in the winter semester. We've had a great fall semester and summer semester, so a lot that you can already watch, and I'm excited to bring our semester in the winter time. Does anyone have further questions for me? I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions. I'll also drop a link to our email, alicia@lumiwealth.com, alicja@lumiwealth.com. You can email our team and we'd be happy to answer any questions anytime. You can also message us on Circle, lumiwealth.circle.so. You can send a direct message to me or anyone else in our team. You can even make a public post. Reach out anytime. If you want to chat on the phone, you can also book a call with us. We do have that option too. So if you want to, answer your questions live, then feel free to book a call. We have a lot of spots open, especially for this week, just before our early bird sale ends. Otherwise, everyone is free to go. We have covered our topics for tonight. I hope you have a better understanding of Web3 and dApps. And again, I'm happy to help anytime. When you're a student at Lumiwealth, you're a student for life, so we're always here to help. Don't forget to check out our other webinars at Circle. We have these kinds of webinars frequently that you can watch along for all of our courses here. So we have webinars on trading, algorithmic trading, machine learning, blockchain programming, tons of free webinars that you can watch anytime. Thank you all for joining. I hope to see you at another webinar or in our winter semester, or maybe the next year as well, as some of you were mentioning. All right. If we have no further questions, then I will see you online or next time. And thanks all for joining and asking, participating as well. And I will end the stream here. So have a great night, everyone. It's been a great time.